Hello and welcome back to another Filfarkov Academy of Linguistic Analysis video. Today I'm incredibly excited because we're going to be doing something a little bit different again. We originally started off by looking at the emotional content of the news being presented on the front page in reference to the war in the Ukraine, how the picture combined or added to the title. We gave it ratings according to the different newspapers and thought about geographic location, political leaning, and weapon sales. Having come to certain conclusions, we've moved on a little bit, and today we're going to be looking at projection, basically via projecting through. So I think, I feel, I believe, where you're not stating it's a fact, you're projecting. We're going to look at two newspapers, The Guardian from England, left-leaning, New York Times from America, also left-leaning. So these are the guys, the English-speaking gun-supplying countries. They've been the ones that have been a bit more emotional in their content. We're not going to compare that today. We're just going to look at how they project. Because there's a very interesting incident. Well, I mean, I'm saying it's interesting, quite sad, people are dying. But a kind of unexpected incident where suddenly Kiev was attacked by Russian rockets. And this is, I think, after about 5 weeks. As you guys might know, here at the Filfarkov Academy, we're not much into the facts. we're more interested in the narrative. But yeah, I think most people would agree there was some period of calm within the city. People were running around in parks, lying on beaches, having fun, getting married. We saw in one of the New York Times videos. Then some rockets hit, and there was some differences in the presence of this story and the way it was narrated. And that's basically what we're going to have a very quick look at today. We'll start with The Guardian. So first of all, just try and picture, right, this is like from about almost a week ago, 2 weeks ago, something like that. Sorry guys, I've been looking at Telegram videos. It's like when people like shooting and stuff like that. It's a lot more. It's almost like you're in a video game. There are shots and people are dying, but it really does look like the video games that you see people playing nowadays, and probably you play yourself. So what do you think? Like, this was just a kind of almost one-off incident. It was after about 5 weeks. Rockets have hit Kiev. This is the same place where recently the European leaders got a train into. Before that, Boris Johnson flew into. There doesn't seem to be many problems with that place, thank goodness, in the last however many weeks. So I personally would have expected to see something pretty front and major. And then probably, thinking about The Guardian, the New York Times, what we saw in them from a couple of months ago, when Kiev was surrounded. Something similar. Before we look at The Guardian, what do you think? Like, this is a picture taken of the front page on the day, and I looked it back, the next day it wasn't that much different. So this was there on The Guardian for, let's say 1 to 2 days. Press pause and have a think about, is it going to be the main one? Is it going to be a picture? What's going to be there? How is that title of information going to be presented? Okay, press pause. If not, let's go. Okay, so there it is, front and center. Front and center, again, where there's smoke, there's fire. We can see that is one of the themes, particularly of The Guardian, I think. I mean, I haven't really been looking at who's been showing the most smoke, but that does seem to be what they like. Very interesting enough, there wasn't this rolling picture that I've seen on The Guardian. The next day with the same news, they did have a rolling picture. They did show some blown up buildings, but perhaps because they didn't access them straight away, I'm not sure. Probably they didn't, because nothing had been happening there. People weren't ready. And so, yeah, anyway, you can see the smoke coming up there. Russia launches airstrikes into Kiev. And so I think that's pretty standard of what we've been seeing. Like, Russia launches and then something negative, militarily negative, into Kiev and warns. So Russia launches, Russia warns, and there's no projecting there. But I think what makes that interesting is that there's nothing about civilian suffering there. And so if we go back, you probably would have seen adjectives here and there in the Guardian and other newspapers. Russia launches savage or brutal or deadly attacks. Citizens die, children. There'd be straight away something like an object in there that makes you feel really, really sad. But here it kind of launches airstrikes into Kiev, and we don't know what the object result of that is. We just know that there's warning of further attacks. And this is what we're looking at today. An advisor to the mayor of Mariupol has said. Okay, so that's projecting information from the advisor to the mayor of Mariupol, which is interesting. This is, like you're going into a small city in the Ukraine, and then it's the mayor, but it's not even the mayor, it's the advisor to the mayor. But he's front and center. Okay, and then what we're going to rock onto, which to me gave me a shock. I've only seen it once. Like, this is 3 months of looking at front pages, and I'm not looking at every front page of every newspaper every day. Actually, that would be quite interesting if that was your job. But yeah, like, I've only seen this once, and it was in the New Zealand Herald. And it's where you've actually got in the object. Here, we've got the word tanks. So I'll just zoom in there a bit closer. So again, we've got Russia, and then we've got targeted. And then we've got Western supplied tanks, which is interesting, like Western supplied. So only once seen, that was in the New Zealand Herald, oh goodness me, maybe a month ago. And I pointed out this is a very positive sign if you're looking for sources of information and it gives you something that you don't see in other sources. It means you can enrich your understanding of the situation. So that appeared there, and here we have the first bit of news about Western supplied tanks, military equipment here, being targeted. Now, in the Guardian, they use the word targeted, so we don't know if they were hit or not. We just know they were targeted. But again, it's just very interesting. Usually, like, civilians were the target for 3 months, and then on the what was the date? On the 5th of June. Now, I could be mistaken here. I've been looking at the Guardian fairly consistently. On the 5th of June, 3 months into this war, the Guardian reader gets the first piece of information about Russians targeting military weapons, which is the stated purpose of the Russian army in the Ukraine, to demilitarize it. So, quite interesting. If you are a truth seeker, you might like to start asking yourself questions about that. Obviously, you want to see everything as a truth seeker. You want to see the civilians dying, and you want to know about what military equipment's being blown up. But yeah, if you're getting one of those left out, then you got to start asking yourself questions. Then we have this word here, claims. Russia claims, and so that's what you'd expect, because that casts doubt, and that's what you want to put in there. Russia claims, Putin claims. It's quite typical. Interestingly enough, there was you won't usually see it with Western leaders in like Western aligned leaders, at least in editions like the Guardian, except for Donald Trump. He got the claims language quite a lot, which is interesting, because it makes him quite different from all the other leaders of the Western world and what you might call the Western aligned world. They don't usually claim. As we see here, the advisor to the mayor of Mariupol, he said he didn't claim. So that's Western aligned world, I assume, saying, I don't know, maybe he's the new mayor, in which case he wouldn't be. So he must be the old mayor, I'm not sure. Anyway, we're not going to dig into details. It's not that important to what we're talking about today. Okay, so the second one, we can see here that, first of all, it was front and center. It had that slightly strange twist in that they're talking about targeting, launching airstrikes into Kiev, nothing there, and then the full report has Western supplied tanks are targeted in Kiev airstrikes. Not deadly, not brutal, just targeting military equipment. Okay, and then if we come down here, actually, it actually gets to the Hindus flee Kashmir amid spate of targeted killings. Like, you got the word killings there. You've got guys with machine guns here, several dead down there in Nigeria. So you've got killings and dead and fleeing, whereas here, addresses and said and shortage and Western supplied. Oh, here we go. How could I sit at my desk as Ukrainian children die? So there's a little bit there that's creating the idea of death and negativity. But other than that, you've got something that's smoke billowing, but ideas of a military operation. Okay, so what about the same day, New York Times? What do you think? Do you think it's going to be front and center? Are they going to be saying smoke? Will they be showing a bombed out building? Press pause if you want to have a guess. Okay, did you press pause? No? It's quite interesting. Have a think about that. And like, will they have a moody picture? When I say moody, like where you've got this, again, you've got like the black and then the white of the front there. It's quite nice, isn't it? Okay, like straight away, like I'd just like to point out, there's just a picture of a live baby. Isn't that nice? Like, imagine opening up a newspaper and not reading about dead people and killings and dead children, but just reading about live babies. But then you have a look at the title. There's a new Gerber baby. I love the adjective. Like, what's a Gerber baby? If you don't live in this world, what's a Gerber baby? Is it real? Maybe it's like a toy baby. The Japanese have invented a very lifelike toy baby. I don't know. What's a Gerber baby? Again, we're not going to, we're not going to dig into the details, but some parents are mad. Even when you've got the positivity of a newborn child who's not dead, thank goodness, God grant them long life. You still have to say parents are mad about the fact that it's a new Gerber baby. Okay, so what have we got here? Here we've got a picture of a black man, and look, because I'm a racist geographist, I automatically assume that he's in African. simply because he's looking like he's in a cave somewhere, digging. He looks like a miner. Yeah. And it's not the associations you have of black Americans. Yeah, that's quite racist and regionalist, isn't it? Like, I'm sure there are black American miners. But anyway, and then, not black English people. We don't think about black English people very much, do we? Okay, so in Africa, there we go, right, a Putin back. So we've got Putin there, but there's nothing about that bombing. So you might think, John, what are you doing? Field Faculty Academy doesn't know what's going on. It's got the wrong edition. It's got the wrong day. But it's the same day, maybe the day before or something like that. Anyway, we have that story down a bit lower. I should be using the arrows. There we go. Russian missiles hit Kiev. Okay, so there we go. We've got Russian missiles hit Kiev. So if you remember, the Guardian one launched into Kiev, but it doesn't mention actually hitting Kiev. It just launched into. It's a location. This one's a little bit stronger in its wording. It hit Kiev, but it's not up the main story. And I did come back and look at it, and it didn't really make its way up to the top, which is fascinating if you think about it, especially given that the top news is about Putin. That's far more than a war machine. And so they're talking about the Wagner Group somewhere in Africa, and I think Americans might be looking at a few more $50 billion weapons ones off to Africa. I shouldn't be laughing. I think the reason why I've started laughing, like, first of all, my good friend in Australia said, don't worry about laughing. It's funny when you do it. And she's very sympathetic towards other human beings. Don't worry about that. But I think it's just because I haven't seen dead people. Like, have you noticed that? Like I don't know what editions of the newspaper you've been reading, but the war's still going on. People are dying. Like, some of the statistics are just shocking. But there's just nothing on the front pages anymore. Maybe because they got complaint letters, like all the newspapers, New York Times, Guardian. I mean, I haven't been looking up. I've been focusing more on the left-wing ones because I'm a bit more of a left-wing newspaper reader, to be honest with you, than a right-wing one. But anyway, let's have a look a bit deeper at this missiles hit Kiev. And we'll see some very interesting language. Like, first of all, what Putin issues a warning. It's very sophisticated. That as is quite typical. Putin issues a warning. So the theme is the same, like missile Kiev, Russia warning. Let's have a look at the Guardian. Here in the Guardian, we had Russia launches and warns. So there's Russia launching and Russia warns of further attacks. So quite direct with the warns. New York Times, it wasn't warns, it was issues. Can you remember? Issues. Issues warning. So pretty much the same thing, just in a more formal structure. Issues warning to the West. Now, I'm going to jump back again. You're probably getting a bit annoyed by now, but did they warn the West in the Guardian newspaper? No, warns of further attacks. And obviously there's not stated where, but you just have to assume from the context, Russia, Ukraine, Russia launches Kiev, Mariupol, Ukraine, okay, the Vatican. Russia's probably going to launch rockets into the Vatican. So you just have to assume that they're talking about Ukraine there. So, a slight different projection. Russia's saying different things. Here they're just warning of further attacks, and not against whom. You just assume it's Ukraine. But the New York Times reader is being told that these are attacks against the West that might come. And then here we get something that, honestly speaking, I just find shocking and slightly scary when I see it in something like New York Times, like Russia said. I don't know why. It's like, yeah, it's like meeting a bandit who's like really nice. Like, that's it. It's like once I met a heroin drug dealer, and he was a really nice guy. Like, I met him as a person before I found out he was a heroin dealer, and I was quite shocked. Like, how did somebody so nice be a heroin dealer? I mean, obviously this never happened, and I'm not sure what I'm talking about, but this is the same kind of thing. Like, Russia said in the New York Times, what's going on here? What did Russia say? The strikes destroyed tanks. Okay, so we've got a direct, like, it doesn't target the tanks like it did in the Guardian. It destroyed the tanks. And if you remember the Guardian, like, what was the tanks in the Guardian? So here it was off to the right. Sorry guys if this is getting a bit annoying, all this jumping around. Okay, here it is off Western supplied tanks. So very, very important, I think, for the people who are donating weapons. The American taxpayer, I think. I'm not sure. Not many people seem to be clear on this. Like the billions of dollars have been passed, and I assume spent, given to the military companies. And I assume that the weapons have then been shipped. But like, where did those billions of dollars come from? I guess that it was the American government that paid as a loan to Ukraine, meaning the Ukrainian people will have to pay. But I imagine that kind of figure which is way past what their budget would usually be, probably wouldn't be met in the near-term future. So I guess it would then be cancelled, which would mean the American taxpayers. But I think in the printing of trillions of dollars life that we have at the moment, or we've had for quite a few years now, probably doesn't matter that much. So coming back to the topic, here, tanks supplied by Ukraine's allies. Like this is just a joke. It's supplied by Ukraine's allies. Like, who are Ukraine's allies? The Guardian had supplied by the West. But here, supplied by Ukraine's allies. Like, who are they? Like, is it Poland? Is it NIMBY? Is NIMBY an ally of the Ukraine? Like, where are these tanks from? So you can see here it's not really the clear picture that you'd want to see. I mean, you can click on it and try and read and get more information, but I think it'd be a lot easier just to put supplied by, and then I don't know, NATO or America or Germany. Like, just put a country's name in there, make life a bit easier. But yeah, like the shock of the century, Russia said, and then destroyed tanks, and so a big switch there, a really, really big switch, where on a day when you've got rockets hitting Kiev after a big break, front page of New York Times doesn't have that as the main story, and no picture when it covers it a bit further down, and it has things like Russia said, and about targeting the military. So some strange changes going on. For some of you guys are fact finders, some of you guys are conspiracy theorists. I prefer the conspiracy theory side a lot more. I think it's a lot more fun. And there's no expectation of actually finding the facts, because you just come up with your theory and fit whatever facts you see into that theory so you feel good about it. So it's a little bit easier than trying to ascertain the facts. But I think most people seem to agree some rockets hit Kiev and nothing about civilians being killed, which is strange. It's not strange because, that might actually happen, like Russian rockets might actually target a military target, but it's just strange in that it doesn't match the narrative that's been present for the last 3 months in these two newspapers. And that, along with the absence of dead people on the front page, like, I really hope I'm not jinxing things. I haven't looked at the front pages for a little bit. Like, maybe you guys have been reading the New York Times and the Guardian have seen nothing but dead people on the front page for the last few days. But certainly they've gone. That's why I'm laughing a bit happier. This guy here in the mine, thank goodness he's alive. And let's all hope that whatever the reason is that the mums are angry about the Gerber babies, that they can sit down at the table and work things out so the Gerber babies can live peacefully into the future. Okay, everyone, that's it from the Full Fuck Up Academy. Probably went on for about twice as long as planned as usual, but it was just interesting to have a little bit of a delve into the differences between the two titles, the positioning. Without worrying too much about the point position. Okay, take care. Have a good one. Look forward to catching up with you next one.